so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness which creates and animates all things. After years of exploring this awe-inspiring truth on this podcast, I'm super excited to announce that we are now going even deeper down the rabbit hole on the new late-night style consciousness-elevating talk show called Optimistic, which features none other than you, the listeners. Optimistic is taped out of the epic spaceship-esque 8-bedroom property we call the Mystic Manor that myself and the rest of the Optimistic crew now navigate reality from in Venice Beach, California. And you are invited to come experience a Mystic Manor immersion week with us. During your week-long stay, you'll enjoy unique workshops, chef-prepared meals, one-on-one time coaching and consulting with me, and even co-creating magic with me as a guest on both Optimistic and an episode of the Positive Head podcast. When I started this, my aim with these immersive retreats was to facilitate the ultimate spiritual upgrade and tune-up, so to speak, for our guests while providing them with one of the most memorable experiences of their lives. And I'm happy to say that as of this recording, every guest at the end of their trip so far has told me that they have had a profound and transformational experience at the Mystic Manor and that they definitely want to come back. All that being said, we only have a limited number of spots available between now and next July. And as of this recording, about half of those spots are already filled. So if there's any part of you that is screaming, yes, I want to come, I feel like I need to be there, go now and book a slot with me to discuss how we can put our heads together and make it happen at calendly.com/talkwithbrandon. I know for some people, there is also that little voice in their head saying, why not? I can't get off work. I can't afford it, and on and on and on. But, really Henry Ford, I think, said it best. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. And I'm confident that where there's a will, there's a way. And I'm personally committed to doing everything in my power, including discounts and payment plans, to get you here if it is something that truly feels like a huge yes for you energetically and like you're meant to be here. Once again, the link to book time to discuss with me is calendly.com/talkwithbrandon. That's spelled calendly.com/talkwithbrandon. All one word, of course. And book in some time and look forward to seeing you soon here at the Mystic Manor.
All right, all you positive heads, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for joining us today. I have my partner, Bryan, with me because Bryan has been going through a process along his soul journey that I thought would be important to share with all of you. And he is so beautifully offering to be vulnerable and share this process because it is a personal one, and I'm grateful for that. So thank you, Bryan.
Thank you, my love, and hello, Positive Head family. It's great to be back on this show. Always enjoy the opportunity to speak to you what's moving for me and moving for us in this moment.
Yeah, for sure. So this has been going on since, so Bryan did a couple QHHT sessions with me. The first one was a couple years ago, and then he did another one more recently here. And both times he had a very similar reaction to it, where he questioned what he saw, and he questioned the messages from his higher self. And the second time when he did it, I feel like he questioned a little bit more. What do you think, Bryan?
I think I was maybe a little bit more vocal about the questioning initially, but it hasn't been as much. Hasn't been as long lasting, is what it is. Because I'm not really doubting it as much.
So that's what I want to talk about today.
Absolutely.
This process of not doubting it, because we all go through this doubting process, doubting ourselves ultimately. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing to not believe in a process. That's okay. But you've got to believe in yourself and your own guidance, your own intuition. And that's why I love this method. That's what it teaches you. So tell us a little bit about your process and what you've been learning lately.
Sure. Well, yeah, I'll just, I'll speak to my first QHHT session. And, I'll just say before that, as Erica knows, I'm pretty into all the esoteric, magical, cosmic, and just multidimensional aspects of reality, and am really open to, so much, like so much so that it's, we have probably a pretty slim group of people. At least before I met Erica, I had a very slim group of people that I would be comfortable sharing all of the things that I was into with. And so, I'm just highlighting that because I had a fairly expansive and open idea and understanding of the universe and reality before I did my first QHHT session. What I didn't have was a lot of confidence in my own guidance. And so when I had my first QHHT session, it was definitely really profound, and I didn't find myself questioning it very much during the session. However, as it is important and really necessary for QHHT sessions to really be effective and I think long lasting, it's suggested, of course, that you listen to your sessions.
Absolutely.
And in the listening to the sessions, that's where I started to pick it apart, like mentally, like there were certain things about things that I said, I got caught up on the fact that I used like one word and it actually wasn't the right word. At least it didn't seem like it. And around this one piece and just certain ways that, I evaluated my past life experience, which was part of my session, and also just the guidance that was coming in from my higher self or subconscious during the second part. And, in that picking apart, there was just doubt about, what I was doing, I was getting mentally caught up in the details, right? And really losing sight of the feeling, which has been an important theme around this, coming back to it. And so I got a lot of benefit out of that first session, and I would say that it kind of, came and went and floated on until we did our second session. And during the second session, again, there was a couple of circumstances that were just interesting in my experience of another past life I had experienced during that one. The details that came out around it and the way I was imagining it or seeing it during the session, there were certain aspects of that were just like, kind of unclear. And and then some of the guidance that it was given to me by my higher self, again, I was a little questioning. And it all really centered again around like just this mental process of picking apart, like the particulars of what I was seeing and what was going on. And what I'll say about that is that, I do shamanic visioning or shamanic journeying. And in my second session, my higher self actually spoke to that, and it ended up kind of applying to this process of also like experiencing these QHHT sessions and experiencing the intuition of my higher guidance. The question was asked about, how can I delineate and say like a shamanic journey between being, imaginative, like imagining what I'm seeing, and actually getting like a higher guidance. And what my guides told me was that, really imagination and the higher guidance it's like the same action. It's what they said though, is that the pool of information that you're drawing on has more of a personal impact to you when it's something that's like a higher guidance that's meant to be guiding you towards some aspect of your evolution. So, I have a really strong imagination. I'm a writer. I grew up reading fantasy novels. And so that's part of the questioning process for me when I'm doing visioning or like the QHHT session, like my past life, it was like really, the second session, my past life, I'll just say I lived as this like cat being who was hunting with his son, and there was this like series of events where we ended up, saving this like trade caravan of these like cave dwelling beings that were being attacked by these like raptor like lizard beings, and like so like and when I say this out loud, I'm like, oh gosh, it's like, what what would people think of it, and B, like that sounds like a novel that, or like sounds like a story that I could easily imagine. I recognize in the mental sense, in the pictures, I could probably easily imagine. However, again, so in the second half of that session, as my guides were talking about the feeling, they were talking about the difference between imagination and the higher guidance. They said, it really centers around feeling, like what is the messages you're receiving in your feeling centers when you're experiencing whatever you're experiencing,
Yeah, that's the biggest point, because I'll tell you what, I've had a ton of sessions and not a single person has gotten out of there with dry eyes.
Right.
Whether it's during the interview part or during the session itself. And when it happens in the session itself, and I mean, grown men, like military strong men who break down in tears in their session, that feeling you cannot make up.
Right.
No matter how beautiful your imagination, how grandiose it may be, you can't make up those feelings.
Absolutely.
Now, even if you think you're imagining what you're seeing, well, then you can ask yourself this question: why am I imagining this? Why is my subconscious bringing up this? There's still lessons in it.
Absolutely.
No matter how you want to look at it.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, there's absolutely going to be messages there, whether it's like quote unquote imagination or whatever, because there's always a reason for you seeing what you're seeing.
Yes.
And sometimes, and I want to try to stay somewhat linear with this, but we might kind of bounce around. So, but one of the things that was actually talked about again by my higher self in that session was the aspect of what I've heard referred to, and they referred to it as the coyote medicine or coyote medicine. So in working in like plant ceremonies and shamanic ceremonies, I've heard that brought up, where the coyote medicine is where you're shown images that are not correct, or they're not necessarily in alignment with what is your highest path, or whatever it might be. They're not necessarily supposed to be something that you're supposed to accept as being like the truth or your truth, let's say. And the reason that that's done is that it's put there for you to develop discernment and realizing that you need to get in touch with your feeling centers, which is attached to your intuition, in order to really intuit whether or not this is something that is best for your process. And I think, and not to get too spun out on this, but I think it's an important mechanism, because I do believe that there are, let's say, there's like a kind of like a false prophet archetypal energy that's out there in terms of like being kind of attracted to things that are shiny and full of light, let's say, but are misleading, and could even like be misleading you off your path. And there's a reason for that. Again, it's like part of that that developing the discernment. So within that coyote medicine, recognizing realizing that sometimes those images are put before you, then that's the opportunity that, okay, there's a reason there. And then you can ask questions and ask for the feelings, like feel into it, ask for the feelings associated with it and see where that leads you, And, just to talk a little bit more about the feeling, to come back to that, as I wanted to mention, in my first session, I would say the strongest feeling that I have had was, in my first experience of my my first past life, I was in a tribe in Siberia at the onset of the last ice age, and we were trying to escape like the snowy storminess. And so we were traveling as a family. I got separated from my family. I ended up getting killed by this big like cat beast thing. And, which I later found out was a cave lion. And I floated out of my body and, flew to my family who, after all was said and done, they had found my body, they brought him back. And in that life, because we were in such hardship, our tribe that we were a part of used to sing a lot. I mean, it was a big part of our culture. We sung. But when we got kind of stranded out on this tundra and we were just in survival mode, we didn't really sing anymore. We were just like really just trying to survive. And I remember I floated as a spirit back to my family after they had brought back the cat, first of all, that killed me. And my body, and they were eating because they were able to eat this cat being, and they started singing. And at that moment was just this incredible wave of like, I started crying. It was like this incredibly beautiful moment that I was experiencing. I was feeling that this my death had, catalyzed them to get in touch with their song again, and the other one I'll say is that in the second life, when the real strong feeling for me, I think the most strong feeling was when, I realized I had my son with me and that we were hunting, and it was, we were doing this like rite of passage, ceremonial hunt. And there was a moment when I realized what was going on, that I got this really deep feeling of like pride and love, and and I don't have a teenage son. He was a teenager in that life, let's say, and I don't have a teenage son. I could kind of maybe imagine a little bit what that might feel like, but it was such a strong like, oh, that's what it feels like to have like this teenage son that you're super proud of, that is here with you on this rite of passage moment. So I'm just highlighting all of that because these feelings and the QHHT sessions were great for giving me that. And I still allowed myself to dissect it mentally, and I was losing touch of what that feeling was, like what was happening when I was feeling during these visionary experiences. So all of this is tying back to the concept of intuition. And when we need to tap into and develop our internal guidance and our connection with our intuition, and it has to do with feeling, right? And so that's what I've been coming to as realizations and remembrances really about that, is that it's super important to tap into the feeling centers to be able to discern what is in alignment with my truth and my highest path.
Sure. Yeah. The feeling is how we make those discernments. So when you get a vision or see something, how does that make you feel? That's your answer. It can be very, very simple. It is very simple, but we don't allow it to be that simple because, like you were just talking about, that analytical side comes in and starts breaking it all apart, questioning it, not trusting in it, not believing in yourself. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation today, because I know that we're all working on this. I feel like I've been working on this for 20 plus years now, and I still don't completely have this down like 100%. Of course, like still always growing, always learning. But it blows my mind sometimes when I hear things like the other day we listened to a Bashar clip. Mm-hmm. And it's something that I've understood, but not completely. So I don't know how I can explain that. It's like you understand a piece of it, like you're getting the pieces, but you don't have the whole picture.
Absolutely.
So along my process of learning to trust my own intuition and seeing the signs and synchronicities in the universe, you start to think sometimes, because you're seeing these signs and synchronicities during times when the situation isn't right for you. And so when I went through a period of like that in my life, I was so confused. And I was like, why are they messing with me? They're totally screwing with me right now. This is not cool. What are you guys doing? I don't understand. I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to do all these things. So here's what Bashar said. And it just put it in such great perspective. So the signs and synchronicities aren't just saying, hey, you're on the right path. Keep doing what you're doing. No, not really. They're saying pay attention. And here's the little part that like, kind of when I heard that, I was like, oh, I can't believe I didn't get this. Like, because I got the pay attention part. I kept seeing these 222s and I knew that 222 meant pay attention. Just pay attention. But I wasn't seeing this big picture of pay attention. Look around to this situation that you think you want. Is this really what you want? Pay attention to the whole of it. Look around and see it all. Make sure this is really what you want, because when we pay attention to it, we can create our reality by keeping our thoughts in alignment with, I do want this or I don't want this. And that's the universe's way of saying, hey, here's your choice. Which one do you want? Pay attention.
Absolutely. Yeah, that synchronicity thing was a big like light bulb for me too.
It was, yeah.
It was like, wow, because I've been seeing synchronicity numbers for so long, and I've always taken it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with this either in terms of like feeling like when you see certain numbers that's reminding you you're on the right path. Like there's an aspect of that that's great. Like if that feels like because there's been times where those numbers have shown up, and I'm like, oh, I get kind of that wave of like, oh, I am on the right path, and it helps remind me. And I think probably I would say that might be, for lack of a better term, maybe kind of like a beginner aspect of the synchronicity numbers, where it's kind of like it's showing you, hey, like the universe is watching, like they're listening, they're showing you these synchronicity numbers are showing up for a reason, and so that helps us be like, oh, there is a higher aspect going on. There is, I
have help. I'm not alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then if it starts feeling like it's messing with you, that's like where it probably feels, that's probably where this aspect is most relevant. And it's interesting because when I heard that Bashar clip too, it made so much sense, because we were thinking about moving to Southern California recently.
Right.
And when we went and visited, we saw these crazy synchronicity numbers.
Over and over.
We were seeing like license plate after license plate after sign after sign.
But what numbers were they mostly? Remember, they were 222s.
They were 222s mostly, but we were seeing that. We were also seeing them in sequence too.
We were, yeah.
And so the whole time, I'm just thinking, like at first I was like, is this telling us like we're supposed to move here? I mean, there's like all these synchronicity numbers. And then when I listened to the Bashar click, I'm like, oh, they were continually showing us opportunities to tune in, because we were traveling. So as we're driving through this area,
look around
where we might live, like, is this where you want to be? Just like it was like total just check-in points. Like, is this it? Is this it? Is this it? Like, where are you at? Where you feel? So I think that's an interesting aspect about the concept of synchronicity and, seeing guidance, in the shamanic cultures. Like I've been seeing a lot of medicine signs recently with like birds and, animals. Like I saw 2 hawks the other day, and like road runners have been showing up for me.
Oh, me too. At the park?
Like outside the park.
Yeah.
Totally. And, and there's, in certain cultures, they'll have like meaning associated with that, right? However, it's such a personal thing. Yes, the roadrunner represents a certain kind of archetype of some sort of the animal kingdom, and is a particular medicine. And there's you could go to a shamanic practitioner that from that area that would know kind of how to read that and give you some sign on it. And there's still a really important aspect of understanding the feeling. Like, what does that feel like when that come across your path? Like, what does that invoke in you when you see the hawk, when you see the cat, when you see whatever that is? Like, what does that end up doing for you? So there's kind of an intrinsic archetypal, energy there with these things. And same with synchronicities. Like, there's kind of an intrinsic, like, yeah, you're synchronizing with reality at the moment, and like what's coming up for you in that moment. Like, how are you feeling? What's on your mind? And what opportunity is it offering you for reflection? Right?
Absolutely. The feeling is always the answer. And if we could just relax into that, and let it be simple, life is a lot easier.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I know we're running out of time here today, but I just thought there's one thing that you were going through this week that you finally had this aha moment about that I'm not quite recollecting what it is. Do you remember?
The aha moment.
I remember. It was, you started to do some channeling.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And you were questioning that
right
a little bit at first.
Right.
And then what happened?
Right. Well, yeah, I'll just say that per the last QHHT session, I was given, and what's interesting about this too, this part of my QHHT session, I've actually done down to the T, which was cool. Because you asked my guides if I was supposed to channel at some point. But the question was, am I supposed to channel any other consciousness than, say, like my higher self, basically, right? And they said yes. And what they said is that, I need to tune in with my higher self, get used to that channel opening, and then, there will be other opportunities possibly beyond that. And so you gave me a key phrase, or they gave us a key phrase, me, I should say, to be able to access like the channel with my higher self. And I've been using that. And so I've been channeling my higher self in meditation. And then I started, one day I got this like feeling and message that another consciousness that is still connected and aspected with my higher self, but can be considered not that, like, because it's basically my higher self is part of this collective, basically, right, of an upper dimensional race. And anyways, this energy started coming in, and I started bringing it through, speaking, and I've been doing this sun language, this, some people might call it like a light language or a shamanic language, but I've been bringing this language through that it apparently is like associated with them. And so it came through that language, and then this feeling came through that this, collective was here, and I started speaking with them. And then when I asked what their name was, I was like, give me a break. Seriously. Because names don't really matter at that level, so they usually just give you something that's supposed to kind of be representative or have like a vibrational complex that is assistive in like calling that that energy through, that consciousness. But I, like, when they gave me the name, I was like, that's absurd. Like, it sounded like, to me, it sounded like a typical like E.T. name from a 1950s movie.
So wait a second. So when Bryan was telling me this, he actually told me the name, and you don't have to share it here. That's fine. But what he did do, when he was saying like, the name he said was the exact name of my healing guide when I asked for a name that came out. And yeah, that might have been part somewhere in your memory, but just the fact that you said that, because my reaction when I heard that name was the same exact reaction. Like, really though? Right. Is that your name? And it was very much a disbelief type of reaction. Come to find out later, that name, I looked it up, means them, and other people have heard of it. So it wasn't completely crazy, and I just needed to trust myself more, which you have learned as well. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, that was a funny moment, because I was telling her, it sounds like a 1950s like E.T. Name, like, and I said her guide name. And she's like, what? Anyways, it was a funny moment. So anyways, and so I of course I started doubting this message, but then I was like, all right, I'm going to keep bringing it through. And there was a moment actually when I was in that kind of channeling state, and they were giving me like a message that, again, like it didn't vibe with me, like it didn't resonate, and I they kind of gave it to me matter of fact, like as like, hey, this is what is. And I'm like, that doesn't, like, and I got caught up on it, like I couldn't keep going and so then I like felt into it, and then I heard them say like, well, what's the feeling around it? I'm like, well, I actually feel it's the opposite. And they're like, great, good job. Like that's the intuition. And that was from that moment, like the message started getting a little clearer. And then the next day when I did the channeling, like they came in more fully, like, cause the first sessions, they were kind of just, the best way I can describe it is they're, melding with my consciousness a little bit. I still felt like I was me, or kind of aspects of my higher self talking. And there was just like a pretty good mix of me in there, and that they were just like more influencing my, my visionary and thought process to a certain degree versus like speaking through me. And then the next day, like they just like came through like fully, and the feeling. So they brought the feeling in. So now, like when I get into that state, there's like a feeling, and it's funny. I've got this like cheesy grin on my face, and it's really kind of comical. But it's the energy that they've been bringing through, and the feeling associated with it is like really powerful. And that's the thing too, is that I started doing the sun language, and I've been doing. I kind of got activated through attending some shamanic ceremonies where I saw the shaman like speaking, a different language. And, there's that people out there that call it like light language or whatever it might be. So I've been kind of activating that a little bit, and I've just, I work with it when it comes through. And, there's an aspect of me questioning that too, and I started getting this particular language that I called sun language, because it felt like it was kind of coming through the solar portal. And, when I started questioning that again, I couldn't deny that even if it was gibberish, what was happening to me after speaking that for a few minutes was like profound. Like the feeling that was happening in my body and in my energy system and everything is just, it's undeniable,
Yeah.
So even though like I might not be super excited about like talking about the name of this collective that's coming through, actually I am now. They're pretty cool. Or at least I wasn't at first. I couldn't deny the feeling that was coming through,
Well, yeah. So these are all the ways that our higher self works with us. Mm-hmm. And they really want us to figure this out on our own with their help, right? Like they're always here to help us.
Right.
But we still have to get it ourselves. They can't force us to get it. They're just helpers. And so there's all these ways that they try to help us. It's just we're silly humans, and we get it totally confused all the time. And if we could just allow it to be simple, then it can truly just be that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really what I wanted to talk about today, was this communication with our higher self can really be so simple, and we don't have to make it so complicated and question our visions, our imaginations, our intuitions, because they are from this beautiful, grand source of love and protection.
Absolutely.
Showing us exactly where we want to go, what we want to be. Right?
Absolutely.
Helping us find our purpose.
Yep. Helping us find our purpose, our path, our power,
Yep.
Our sovereignty, helping us just understand the depth of who we are and how we can, how we can draw upon our own strength and power.
Yep.
And, and I use or maybe use isn't the right word, but I utilize the aspects of guides in, lots of ways with animal totems and like my guides, and I've been working with like dragon energy recently, and there's all these things that are just, for me, And that was a message that came through when I was asking these guides, particularly, like, what about all this stuff? Like, I've got all this stuff that I'm working with, the animal totems and the dragon energies and all these things. It's like, it just seems like it's kind of like, again, it's like my imagination just spinning out and whatever. And like, and they're like, yes, you don't want to get too caught up in like all that stuff if it's just just doing it, say, just to do it. Like, I mean, it can be fun, that's fine. But what they were saying is that, like, whatever it takes for you to be able to tap in with certain aspects of your consciousness, because it's all part of your consciousness, whatever way that, if you need to kind of personify an aspect of your consciousness in order for you to be able to grasp the medicine that's there, or be able to understand and call that in, if you need to imagine the jaguar to call in like strength and courage, then that's available to you at any time, and all these different aspects. So, it's just, everything is here to help us learn, right, our own power. And speaking of power, I'm getting a message that I'm supposed to bring this collective through. I guess it's my debut. It's a little nerve-wracking, but it's okay.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Yeah, I'm going to try it out. Now, I do want to say a quick thing about channeling, and that is, what has been coming through for me, the name of this collective, which I have personally identified as basically a higher aspect of myself that is also aspected with maybe an oversoul, other souls that exist in, say, upper dimensions, whatever that looks like. It's the way that I have been able to tap into like a higher sense of information and consciousness that I'm able to access through this process. But what I want to say about that is that anyone is capable of doing this, and whether it is called channeling, or what's probably most commonly called nowadays is like a flow state, where you're just tapping into these upper levels of consciousness that are really parts of ourselves. I just want to state that that's really what it is, and it doesn't need to have a name. It doesn't need to be a being, an entity, or whatever whatever it comes across. I just want to say that this is how I bring through, or at least how I'm doing it now, bringing through messages from what feels like a higher part of my consciousness that I have access to.
Yeah. And, you made two really, really good points there. So when you're channeling these aspects, they're all you. Your contact with your higher self is you. When I talked about my healing guide earlier, that's me. All me in different aspects and different dimensions. So when you think you can't channel, really, you just have to believe that you can talk to the other aspects of you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And anyone can do this.
Absolutely. All right. So here we go. Hello, everyone. This is the Zernza Collective speaking through the vessel known as Bryan. And we thank you and we honor you all for taking a moment to listen to, I guess, what would be a debut message from us through this magnificent vessel that we have been so blessed to know and get in tune with over the last, short period of time here as he has been bringing us through, but a long period of time in your measurement as we have been very, very, very intimately intertwined, as it is, in lifetimes and lifetimes with both Bryan and Erica. Hello, Erica.
Hello.
Well, thank you for holding space while we come through. This is a very, we just want to speak a few brief moments about this topic that we've been speaking on. And we just want to speak to all the people that are listening to this. And if we decide that this recording is meant to go out to the masses, then may it be received by all who need this medicine in this moment. And what we wish to say about intuition and about guidance is that you hold you that are listening to this, hold the key that unlocks the doorway to your heart. That is the center of feeling that you can utilize in order to tap into your intuition and tap into the sense of feeling that allows you to become a intuitive and a flowing, creative, embodied divine aspect of the Creator. So that's why the phrase we actually gave Bryan was the key that unlocks the door is in your hand. And this phrase is very poignant in being able to allow one to tap into that doorway to intelligent infinity that exists within the heart space and allows you to tap into the root of feeling, which goes well beyond your body. And the body is this beautiful mechanism that it brings feeling through and gives you a visceral experience so that you can see that when something is in resonance, you will get a feeling within the body that should feel like some sort of ease or illumination or perhaps a buzzing vibration of power, of love, of energy, and something that feels, or we should say, something that feels expansive and graceful and full of love. Now, of course, as you tune into your intuition and into this feeling center for the first time, and especially as your mind starts wrestling with the messages you're getting from the feeling center, your mind is very powerful and can create feeling where it has resistance around accepting the reality and truth that you might be feeling and might be tuning into. If your mind has been wrapped around a story and scenario that has not been serving you, it is addicted to that story in such a way as it can create feeling that can inhibit you from seeing the true feeling that is within that scenario or that experience. And so our suggestion with that again is to come back to the heart, come back to the heart, come back to the heart. Diving deeply into the heart space. You can use sound, you can use mantra or simple syllables. A simple syllable, the sound of expansive, will expand the heart open. So if you are having doubts about the feelings that you are feeling, if you are having doubts about what your mind is trying to show you or dissect, if you're having doubts about the synchronicities or lack of synchronicities that you are seeing, feeling, hearing, touching, then you can use the sound of to expand the heart open, imagining a brightly burning sun at the center of your chest, and then taking and breathing in the experience that you are in right now, breathing in the mental doubt or the lack of clarity, breathing all of the situation that you are in into the center of your heart, and then asking, what is the true feeling here around this? Does this resonate with me? What is the message here in feeling that I need to feel? And perhaps that feeling then does come up as what would be considered a negative feeling. And if so, then that means that whatever you're thinking about or whatever it is that is in your experience periphery right now might be something that is meant to be curated in such a way as to be processed and then let go. And then if you are, or we should say, if you are getting a blessed feeling, a feeling of, as we said before, illumination, expansion, of healing, of resonance, then you know that within that heart space, that is the truth. And as you develop this, as you make intentional movements and actions to develop your intuition and tuning into this heart space, then what will happen is that as you move through your day, as you move through your life, as things come at you in the moment, you can tune immediately into the heart and ask, what is happening here? And what will happen is you will naturally then start seeing and feeling the reaction coming from the heart when you are giving a particular scenario, whether it be, say, an interaction with a person or an interaction with yourself, some mental download, or let's say a mental story that you're working with, you will see an immediate reaction from the heart space. And as you do this, you can trust it. The choice is yours, but you will see through the proof of what this manifests for you, that as you trust the signal coming from your heart, you can trust that that first signal, which is always, by the way, the first signal you get when you are in any scenario, whenever you have a reaction to something, the heart is going to be the first thing to react. Now, the mind might come in and try to shut that down and close in on it with the story. However, if you get that feeling from the heart, whether it be a subtle, soft pull or it's a much larger, expansive feeling, whatever that feeling is, that first feeling you get is the truth, is the truth, is the truth, is the truth, always the truth, always the truth, always the truth. So we will leave you with that. You are in touch with your heart is in touch with you. Take some time to get in touch with your heart. Take some time to open your heart to the possibilities of all that is, and understand and trust that your heart always has your highest purpose and guidance in its mind, in its intelligence, because the mind has its intelligence. It is like a brain with all its neurons, and it is much more intelligent than your brain. It knows exactly where it needs to be, how it needs to express, and what the best scenario is for the highest growth and healing of the vessel within it resides. So thank you all for listening to this transmission. We bless and love you, love your hearts, love your souls. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Okay.
Wow. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow. Yeah.
That was actually probably the most powerful experience I've had so far. I was definitely taken for more of a ride that time than before, which I needed to be, because I definitely was starting to come up with my own consciousness being like, right. It's not time for this yet. But yeah, that was really profound for me too, because that was, I didn't feel like I had much of my consciousness there at all. I mean, I was watching it, but yeah. And I guess I would be called a conscious channel, but and because I can see what's going on, and that particular experience was definitely felt like I was being taken for more of a ride than before.
Yeah. Wow.
So thank you
that
all.
Message was amazing.
Thank you all for holding space for that. That was really beautiful for me too. Hopefully for you.
Absolutely. And I love that the very last message, because it's something that I think maybe I forget to even talk about, but that first feeling, that first that is the truth. Mm-hmm. And the way that came out is the truth. Yeah. That's it.
Yep.
So yeah, I think with that, we're going to be out of here for today. Thank you all for joining us.
Yeah. Thank you all. Thank you all for having me on the show, and may you all be blessed. Have a great day.
We're going to leave you with a song today. This is Wookiefoot, No Body. Till next time, love you all.
And if you're feeling the call to come for a week retreat style Mystic Manor immersion, remember to go now and book your time to speak with me directly about stepping into the optimistic vortex at calendly.com/talk with Brandon while there are still spots left. Otherwise, I look forward to co-creating magic with you at the Mystic Manor.
I might have lost my mind, will you help me, my friend? I can't quite tell where it is that I end and you begin. I feel insane, I can't explain it, but I know in my heart that everyone is greater than the sum of their parts. The candle may go out, but there's a spark in the darkness, burn for a moment and returns. This body, everybody's nobody, just illusions dancing on cell walls. Look behind the eyes to find tilt of the axis starting to shift. I can hear the spirits singing, voices lift. Now change is coming from the roots to the leaves, and Buddha and Shiva and the elephant agree. A chain reaction of compassion from the ashes of greed is coming to set us